Less than 100 days ago that happened. And the entire country was shocked. And the entire country pledged we would do something about it, and this time would be different. Shame on us if we forgot.
Let's put up a poll. CBS News has a new poll out, and it's kind of interesting. Just after Newtown, 57% supported stricter gun controls. Now, several months later, 100 days later, that's down to 47%. Charles, we've seen this over and over again. In the immediate wake of a terrible tragedy, the public responds and demands gun controls, and as time passes, that demand fades.
Well, that's why we don't have direct plebiscites on issues every night on the internet. We have representatives who deliberate and debate and think about issues so that you get a result that might be effective. I think it is wise to actually wait until the emotion is passed. But I think there's another interesting side effect of the passing of time. It isn't only the decline in the enthusiasm for gun control. It's the decline in any serious look at the mental health issues, which at the time you thought, well, there are three issues here: the guns, the mental health, and what's happening in the media. And we heard a bit about the last two at the beginning, and now it's almost disappeared. It was heartrending when you see the mother of a victim in that ad say you should do something real. I think the gun control is not going to have an effect. I think what might have an effect would be to have a commission or a study to study and recommend the tightening of the laws that would allow the commitment of the mentally ill. This wouldn't have made a difference in Newtown, but it would have made a difference in Tucson, where we have been learning over the last couple of days about the parents who saw in Jared Loughner a kid who was completely falling apart, becoming psychotic and dangerous.
This is the shooter of Gabrielle Giffords.
Right, who killed several others who were in the crowd. And that is an instance where the parents were aware, his classmates were aware of how dangerous he was. But the way that the laws are constructed today, he had to kill before he could be apprehended. And I think that's a real problem. The laws have changed and relaxed over the last generation, and that, I think, is the one thing that would really have a significant effect.
Briefly, if you had a background check, and you know, one of the cases there, Loughner passed the background check even though he had been kicked out of community college because he was judged to be a danger to himself and to others. If you had a better system so that that kind of mental health information got into the background check, would you support it then?
I wouldn't oppose it, but I'm not sure it would make a difference. What should have happened to him is the parents and the people who knew him should have had a way to go to a court and to recommend treatment, and even if it had to be done against his will. I know it sounds harsh, but that's how we did it 30 years ago. And you don't really want people as psychotic as that in the community who can then act in a way that a lot of people around him were sure he was going to act, and he did.
My hope is that we will come to the place where everybody is treated fairly and treated the same. It doesn't mean that people for religious reasons may have a different view.
John, I'm going to ask you to put up the pictures of the cover of Time magazine that's out this week. Here we go. And this is what's the cover, and there are two different covers, one with two women, one with two men. And as you can see, the headline on both of them, Gay Marriage Already Won. I want to talk to you about this, Charles, because the fact is that the Wall Street Journal had an editorial today in which it talked about browbeating by cultural and media elites. Do you feel that there is and those covers certainly part of it, a kind of rush to judgment? And, you know, A.B. talked about a lonely minority, that they're being portrayed as a lonely minority and maybe as more of a minority than they really are.
No, I'm not sure. And I don't think it's a cover like that, or even ads or money or pressure, that has changed the dynamics of public opinion on this. It clearly is the media. I think it was pointed out there about 24 shows on television which have characters in them, regular ongoing characters who are gay and portrayed in, in an ordinary way, as opposed to a generation ago when they were troubled and had, other issues. So, and as you get a younger generation which grows up and says, what's the issue here? So why aren't they treated the way others are? That's why you get this astonishing 4-to-1 majority among young people. And I'm not sure it reverses itself as that cohort ages. I think that is why it's inexorably spread, but that's exactly why the court ought to keep out of this. I think it ought to be left and decided in the way that will give legitimacy by the Congress, by people who elect their representatives, by plebiscites in the states, and to avoid, above all, the mistake that happened with Roe. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who herself was a champion of women's rights, she's on the court, she's a leading liberal, she said that Roe had caused a lot of the damage because it prevented or it retarded a stable settlement of an issue which was on its way to reform. And that's exactly a description of what's happening on this issue here. Stay out of the way and don't have an issue removed from the political process, which makes people have a sense that they have been denied a say on this issue. So I think if you are at the height of your popularity on this, and it is rising, in fact, over time, let the court stay out of it, which I think in the end that's what the court's going to do.
This has been a Sunfish production.